Welcome to my channel, Sandria Media. Today I want to share with you the most incredible day of my life, and that is the birth of my daughter Rebecca. My pregnancy with Rebecca was an amazing pregnancy. My symptoms were not too challenging. Of course, there were symptoms that were unpleasant. As she grew bigger and bigger, it was just so exciting. My due date with Rebecca was December 14th in 2015. So I had this feeling the whole time of my pregnancy that she was going to come a whole week late. I always thought that she was going to be born on December 21st, 2015. I was sort of like putting my hope in that she would be late, so then by the end of my pregnancy I wouldn't become desperate. In the last months of my pregnancy with Rebecca, we found out that my brother was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. And that was a pretty devastating day, but we knew that we were going to team up as a family and support him through this challenge. Around December 7th, when I first had a little bit of Braxton Hicks, and I didn't really think it was going to go anywhere. It definitely was really light cramping, and they were pretty frequent. They were about 5 minutes apart, and I just sort of kept track of them. I texted my doula, Elizabeth, just sort of to be aware, and I was sort of waiting for it to get stronger or pick up, for it to really be labor. But they went away. I woke up in the morning and I was fine. The next weekend was when my brother was going to get his first round of chemotherapy, and I really wanted to be there for him. And I kept thinking to myself, okay baby, okay Rebecca, you need to wait a little bit longer because I really want to be there for your uncle. I can't go into labor yet. Even though it was really quite close to my due date. And so on Friday I went to the hospital. I went to the bathroom in his hospital room and I noticed a huge glob of mucus. I know that's totally TMI, but everyone had been telling me that that was something I needed to look out for because it is the mucus plug, and that generally is an indicator that the labor is about to start. So thankfully I was able to be with Steven through that weekend while he was in the hospital getting his first treatment. It was Saturday the 12th that I was really starting to feel uncomfortable. I was only 2 days away from my due date and I just could no longer take the symptoms. The pressure was intense. It would just hurt to move, it hurt to sit, and I just couldn't get comfortable, I couldn't sleep. I know anyone who has been pregnant and has delivered a baby knows exactly what I'm talking about. I told my husband, I'm just like, I'm done, I can't do this any longer. And it's funny how things work out. So the following morning, this was December 13th, 2015, at 7:30, I was half asleep. And I felt a very strong cramp feeling in my lower back. And then I felt something trickling. So I knew it was not pee. And so I ran to the bathroom, and as I was pulling my pants down, a gush of water came out all over my pants and halfway in the toilet. And I knew right then and there that that was my water. And I was so excited and so nervous at the same time. I ran back to the bedroom and I told my husband that, babe, Rebecca is going to be born today. And it was so funny because usually he's a little hard to wake up, but he jumped up and he was like, does this mean we're not going to church today? And I was like, no, we're not going to church today. And so I hopped in the shower. He started calling family and he called the doctor. Now I can call them real contractions. They started coming pretty regularly, between 5 and 10 minutes apart, and they were definitely stronger than those Braxton Hicks contractions that I had felt about a week earlier, because I hadn't felt any pain like this up until this point. And so the hot shower really helped, kind of got cleaned up. I put on a beautiful soundtrack of Julie Tran, and that sort of atmosphere was exactly what I needed to sort of relax and focus on getting through the contractions as they started to build and get more intense. I called my doula Elizabeth, and she was on her way from Richmond, and so she made it to the house around 8:45. And from there I tried to eat a little bit, but I was not interested in eating, and I tried to drink a little bit as well. But mainly I was just focusing on the contractions and relaxing through them. I had a heating pad that really helped. Elizabeth arrived, and the soaking music is going. My husband is in between helping me through contractions using counter pressure. He is also cleaning the entire house, making sure that all of the suitcases are in the car and that we have everything that we need. He was just absolutely a superhero through that whole time, and I'm so amazed, enabling me really to focus on just riding through the contractions. About every hour or so we called the doctor, or he called us, just to try and see how things were going, if things were picking up, how I was feeling, and we agreed that I seemed to be doing fine and that I could stay at home a little bit longer. And so it wasn't until about 11 that I decided, the pain is getting pretty intense, and I'd really rather not be going through any contractions that were even more painful than what I was experiencing at the moment in the car, because I could just see that as being the most uncomfortable scenario. And so I was like, let's go ahead and head over to the hospital. And so we called the doctor. He was going to meet us there. We packed up our things and we went out the door and loaded up. And I remember as I was walking out, I had flip-flops on and a comfortable dress. It was a very warm day in December, and it was sunny. It was really a beautiful day for my daughter to be born. And in the car, I probably had 4 hard contractions, and they were pretty intense. So I really had to kind of go through the pain alone in the car, in the backseat of the car. And it was very uncomfortable. Thankfully, it was only about a 10-minute ride to the hospital. I slowly kept walking all the way back around to the area to get checked in, and then to the birthing floor. They had me lay out on the hospital bed, and they wanted to monitor the contractions. They wanted to get the heartbeat of the baby, and that was very uncomfortable. I didn't like being on my back. I really felt uncomfortable. The pain was pretty intense. I did notice that the contractions slowed down at this point, and that's what the doctor had told me beforehand, is that for some reason the atmosphere of the hospital generally affects the labor and slows it down a little bit. So that's why he really encourages women to stay at home as long as possible, until for sure this labor is not stopping or turning back. So after they hooked me all up, they also checked my cervix, and at this point I was 4 centimeters dilated, and I was so glad. That was just a really encouraging moment. I felt like, wow, I am almost halfway there. I was like, wow, my baby is really gonna be born today. And I still didn't feel ready because this was December 13th, and for some reason in my mind I had thought that she was gonna come on December 21st. After they kind of checked me out, it was about 12 in the afternoon, and I decided to get into the jacuzzi that they have in the birthing suite. Best idea ever. It seriously makes a huge difference for laboring. I was able to labor pretty comfortably in the jacuzzi all the way up until 9 centimeters. but I'm getting ahead of myself. So at that point, Elizabeth, my doula, was there, and my husband was there. I also called my friend Juliet, and she came. She was there to take birth photos, which I will include a few of those photos in this video. I love them. They're amazing. My husband put music on, the same soundtrack. He tried to change it to something else, and I was like, put the music back. Elizabeth set up battery-lit tea lights around the tub, so it really had a beautiful sort of atmosphere. And as the contractions were coming, Elizabeth would give me sort of a deep shoulder massage, and that really helped, because for some reason all of the stress and tension that I feel from pain or even in life in general always goes straight to my neck. So as she was massaging my neck as I was riding through that wave of contraction, it really made a huge difference. And I found that as long as I was saying, oh, so keeping these sounds that were very primal, very earthy, very low, it helped. It helped me to relax. I was breathing out and making these low, deep sounds. The nurse at one point came in and she was like, I am loving that birthing song, because basically all I was doing were those low, deep sounds, and that was really what was helping me to ride through that pain instead of letting it sort of take over and stress me out and freak me out. I can describe it as the most beautiful time of my life. It was a point of such clarity, and this is why I think it is so beneficial to have a natural unmedicated birth, is because if you are sort of trying to avoid the pain, and there's no judgment if that's what your choice is, but I'm just saying, when you do choose to go through that pain, it automatically wipes away every other thing that's going on in your head, that's going on in your life. And in this moment, you are so primal and so strong and so relaxed. I can honestly say it was the most relaxing time of my life and the most clear that I ever felt. I can't really describe it. I mean, it was just incredible. And just like that, I dilated to 9 centimeters. And it was about now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I didn't realize it, but I started to feel uncomfortable. And all of a sudden, the jacuzzi wasn't making very much of an effect, and I felt like I needed to move. So I got out of the tub, and they checked me, and sure enough, I was at 9 centimeters. I was beginning the stage of transition, which the transition stage is really tense. But I had watched so many birth vlogs, so many birth videos, that I knew that every woman came to that point where they just felt that they couldn't do it any longer, that they were exhausted, and that they were in a lot of pain. But I also know that time is so short in the grand scheme of labor. My doula and my husband were just trying to make me comfortable. It was a little bit miserable, but thankfully it passed by quickly. There was no relief between the contractions. It was just straight pain. It's the only way I could describe it. It was very, very challenging at that point. In transition, my best advice to you is just ride it through. Just know that it's not gonna last forever, and that it is the last stage before you get to push and you get to meet your child. And thankfully it passed quickly. And my doctors checked me, and sure enough, I was at 10 centimeters dilated. And so they told me, okay, it's time to push. And at this point, I did not feel ready. I was like, this is too fast. I'm not ready to have a baby yet. I'm not ready to meet her. I did feel pretty tired, pretty exhausted. the doctor was like, okay, time to push. And so I was on the bed, had my legs up, but I did not feel comfortable. I really did not feel comfortable. My doctor was applying counter pressure to try and help with preventing any tears, and it was so uncomfortable. I was like, get your hand away from there. I just did not feel like I had the power or the strength left in me to push at this point. And then the nurse comes in, and she was awesome. She really was amazing. She said, because you're not using an epidural, I love to recommend to mothers to get on the toilet and push on the toilet. It sounds weird, right? But I was just anything but laying on my back with my legs up. It was just not working. Anything to keep people's hands and everything away from that area down there. I was like, I'm all for it. So we transitioned to the bathroom again, and I was sitting on the toilet, and this moment was when I needed Esau. I needed my husband. He held my hand and he whispered in my ear that I could do it, that I was going to have this baby, and that Christ was going to give me the strength to have this baby. So I put my forehead against his forehead, and I just felt like I was trying to draw any strength that he had in this moment to push. As contraction comes, I push with all that I have, and I actually feel that I'm starting to advance. I can feel her head getting lower, and I feel more in control, more empowered to keep pushing. I don't really want to push. I kind of want to go home now. But that sitting on the toilet made a huge difference. And the nurse was like, okay, I think you should move back to the bed now. And so we moved back to the bed, and I positioned myself a little differently than at that first time. And I started to push on the first contraction that I had back on the bed. And I pushed with all that I have within me, and the doctor says, keep going, keep going, keep going. And it was really hard. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing very well, but I just kept pushing. Then the second contraction comes, and I push with all that I have, and they tell me, touch down there, you're gonna feel her head. And I couldn't believe it. It still leaves me speechless with really the power of it all. It was the most amazing experience of my life. When the doctor sewed up the tear, it was more painful, honestly, than the whole labor. And I also needed to have a little bit of fluids because I was pretty dehydrated from being in the hot tub the whole time, and then not drinking enough, not being intentional with really getting in those fluids. But other than that, I didn't have any other complications. So I didn't really have too many complications other than my blood pressure dropping from being dehydrated. But as soon as I had more fluids in my body from the IV, I quickly recovered. And thankfully, she nursed right away. She was able to latch on without a problem, and I was just still in awe of the fact that she was actually here. And my husband was just taking it all in as well, and it was such a special, special moment. And I really think it was a defining moment of my life. I felt like I stepped into a new level of my life. Becoming a mother was just such a changing moment. All of a sudden my life was no longer about me. It was about taking care of this little human that God had trusted me with. It was just such an amazing, sweet baby. And now she is 9 months old and growing so quickly. And so I really, I'm glad I had the opportunity to sit down and make this video. I want to keep this memory. Hopefully one day she will watch this video and that she'll have this special connection with her birth and know these details. I did also journal it, and I have a paper that Elizabeth, my doula, wrote up for me as well that I have saved. But I think it's kind of special to hear a mother tell her birth story, and so that's what I wanted to do with this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to hear more about postpartum or motherhood or anything like that, leave a comment about that below, and I will try to make some more videos about that. Thank you so much for watching. It was such a pleasure to make this video, and thank you to all my friends and families for the incredible support that you provided my family with. Alright, see you later. Bye!